Secure vCenter Server and ESXi. Okay, I think this is like the 13th or 14th of these series I've done for CBT Nuggets, and every single one of these series has one nugget on permissions and roles. It's like every single technology these days has got its own permissions model, and they're all kind of the same. The role-based access control sort of mindset has really pervaded the industry because it really honestly is a smart way to secure your environment. And so if you're familiar with really any product's role-based access control, then you're probably well suited to take that information and roll it into some other product's role-based access control if you can just find where the different screens are to make the necessary configurations. So once again, I have another nugget for you on role-based access control, this time as it relates to vCenter Server and ESXi. In this nugget, we're going to add to that a couple of miscellaneous topics here associated with the ESXi firewall, and then also how to add an ESXi host to a directory service. So right now, we have this vCenter thing, right, and then we have these ESXi things that sit beneath it. And if you remember, when we first added in those hosts into our vCenter server, one of the things that we did is we created this sort of root username and permission, username and password. That was the mechanism by which the vCenter side of the equation could then authenticate to the ESX side and do whatever it is that the ESX side needs to do. Now we can actually add these hosts to a directory service, such as Active Directory if you want, to provide that authentication from some external service. Totally doable. I'm going to show you some of the basics about how this works. You can either store the information on the host itself, or you can use a directory services proxy if you want. I'll kind of give you some ideas about how that might work. I want to spend just a minute on the ESXi firewall. Right out of the box, the firewall includes and opens up a fairly, good set of ports that you need in order to do what you need to do. The I operating system is remarkably intelligent in the way that it reduces its attack surface area down to as bare minimum as possible. So particularly in comparison with Windows, but in comparison with ESXi is sort of appliance-based approach to how it deals with what it needs to do. Very intelligent. And then also we're going to go through the whole process of identifying what the privileges and roles are, what the different tasks are inside of vCenter server, and how you would configure those permissions, users, groups, and roles. But let's begin with taking a look back here at our vSphere client, same thing we've been working with throughout this entire period. And you remember that we have been actually kind of going back to those marketing people and that resource group that those marketing people that we created for them not that long ago. So those marketing people sometimes have a need to be able to do things. Right? So when we have a group of people that need to be able to do things, and we have to give them the permissions to be able to do those things. Well, we can either do this at the cluster level or at the data center level. You'll notice that we've been sort of skipping past this little tab over here called permissions. Now here in permissions I have administrators, I have the role of administrator, and it's defined at vc.company.pri, which is the top level. This is the location where you would actually add in a new user or group to a specific role. Now if I click add permission here, you see the available users and groups that we have. Now, I think I mentioned earlier that one of the reasons for creating those marketing people and the resource pool that's assigned for those marketing people is so that I could offload some of that scut work associated with doing all those tasks that they want me to do all the time. Maybe allow them to create their own virtual machines, and then I don't have to worry about it. Now, in order to be able to do that, I've already created the resource pool at this point. That constrains the number of resources that they can make use of. But right now, the only person that can actually do anything is myself as the administrator. So let's assume that we want to offload some of those responsibilities. And instead of just you and I, as administrators, doing this role or this task for the marketing people, let's create the access that is necessary so those marketing people can go about creating their own and operating with their own virtual machines. I can do so here by clicking the Add button, and you'll see it brings up Select Users and Groups dialog box here for my domain, and the name of my domain is company.pri. Let's see here, those marketing people. Oh, there's my group. So I have a global group that I've created there in company called Those Marketing People. And if I add that in, I can give those marketing people one of the assigned roles for the cluster in this case that I would want to do. Let's see here, administrator, virtual machine power user, resource pool administrator, data store consumer. You know what? None of these really kind of give me what I'm looking for here. These are the sample ones. And I'm also trying to apply this permission at the cluster, whereas I want to apply it over here at this level. All right, well, so maybe this isn't where I would necessarily want to give those marketing people the access that I would. It sounds like what I want to do really is kind of create a specialized role for those people so that I can assign the role the different permissions that a marketing person might need to do, and then assign the role to the group and the group to those marketing people's resource pool, and then poof, everything just sort of links in that perfectly linked together world. Let's go ahead and do that. So I want to apply this down here, but let me do that last. Instead, let's go up here to Inventory and Administration and take a look at the different roles that have been created here. Here are those roles. So no access, administrator, power user, resource pool administrator. These are all the roles that come right out of the box that can do different things that you may want to assign to people. But I want to create a new role. So marketing people, people's stuff they want to do. Whatever you want to name your role, you can name it appropriately. And so what I want to do here is I want to give them the ability to work with, for example, virtual machines. Okay, so there's my virtual machines, and oh, I don't know, I want them to be able to configure those virtual machines. That's good. And I want them to work with the guests, and I want them to be able to interact with those virtual machines. I think, you know what, if I give them all of the rights and privileges associated with virtual machines, well, that will probably let them create them and remove them and all the things that they're going to need to do. As you can see here, with all of these rights, they get fairly discrete in the number of rights that are available. I mean, all the way down to, do you want to power off but not power on is an available right. Are there any other rights here that they might want to do? I don't want them to work with Update Manager, nor a service. I definitely don't want them working with distributed switches. I don't want them adjusting hosts because they're only dealing with virtual machines. I think this is really the limit of the types of activities that a marketing person would want to do. So let's create this role here. So marketing people, stuff they want to do. And that creates the role down here. Now this role has not been really assigned to anybody. It's not really in use. So this is really the limit of what I'm going to do here in this roles node. The next step is to take the role that I created and then apply it to whatever item in the hosts and clusters view that I would want to apply it to. So here's this resource pool, those marketing people. All right, I want to create a situation where those marketing people can do, again, the things that they want to be able to do. So let me go over here to permissions, and I want to add a permission so that those marketing people, all right, I'm going to add them, okay, and those marketing people can now do the stuff they want to do. I want to propagate that to the child objects and click OK. And as you can see here, now any person that I add into that Active Directory global group called those marketing people will now have the ability to do the things that they need to do. I can hand them the vSphere client at this point, and they're going to be able to see the things that they should see, but not be able to do the things that they can't be able to do. It's actually quite intelligent the way that the vSphere client is created, because you can very discreetly target exactly the actions that you want individuals to be able to do, and then constrain them down into specific either clusters or resource pools, or even down to individual virtual machines, so that they are limited to just those things that are required for completing their tasks. This makes the entire process of securing down both vCenter Server and ESXi across a distributed group of teams much simpler. And I think you'll find the role-based access control for this really good to use, especially when you do want to just simply give people the ability to manage their own virtual assets. Now, I did tell you that there are two other kind of minor topics that are important for this nugget, the first of which is just taking a look at the firewall, and the second of which is connecting into a directory service. Those are going to be done on each individual host back here under the configuration tab. And you'll see down here, if I take a look at all the different software items that are available, there are a couple of different items we want to take a look at. The first of which is security profile, which we're taking a look over here on the right. The security profile for an ESX host provides a location for you to identify what services are up and running or shut down, and what firewall connections are up and running based off of the pre-configured firewall connections that are available in the interface. So first, taking a look here at services, if I view the properties here, just like with Windows, Windows has a set of services that you can set whether or not you want it running or stopped. You can do so here with these remote services, the HA agent, for example, or the shell, or the local security authentication server. If I want, I can take a look at these and change the options for these, whether I want them to start and stop manually with the host or start automatically if ports are open and stop when ports are closed. So all of these available for locking down that server in increasing or decreasing its security attack surface so that it's only running the services that you know you want actually running. Same thing with firewall ports down here. If I click Properties, you'll see that there are a number of different required services and then optional services down below that define the different services and then also the ports, both incoming and outgoing, and the protocols that are associated with those services. So if I click down here, for example, the NTP client service requires outbound protocol UDP 123, and so that port is currently up and running. If I wanted to shut it down for some reason, I don't know why I would, but if I wanted to shut it down, I could do so by clicking the Options button here, and just like I did before, adjust the policy associated with that service or start and stop the service down here. Same thing, fault tolerance or NFC, any of these different services that I want, I can go through and make changes to turn them on or shut them down. I can add additional ports here if I want to allow certain IP addresses or connections from certain IP addresses. This will allow, this will lock down this server so that it will only actually listen to different connections from specific IP addresses or any IP address. Depending on what the security requirements are for my network, I may want to lock that down just to, again, further reduce the attack surface. Now, I will tell you that these ports, as you'll notice here, are fairly limited to the ones that are available out of the box. And while I'm not going to get directly into the specifics of how you would do it at the command line, you be aware that there is a command, the ESXi command with the network switch. That's what you would use actually at the command line for changing which labels are associated with which different incoming, outgoing ports. Let's say you have some sort of special technology, some sort of special third-party application that requires ESX to listen on a different set of ports. Well, you would use the ESXi command to actually add those new incoming and outgoing ports. Now, you might be asking yourself, all right, well, why would I need to actually go to the command line to edit customized incoming and outgoing ports for an ESXi host? And if you think about it, I mentioned numerous times at this point that ESXi really is designed to be an appliance operating system. And so it's really designed to receive the instructions that come to it from vCenter. And you really can't, I mean, you can, but you can't really install software to ESXi. Persisting changes in ESXi are somewhat different because of the way it handles its file system. So there's an argument that a lot of the different third-party solutions may have to leverage the activities that they want to leverage through some sort of other mechanism that may not necessarily involve modifying the firewall. So again, you can create custom ports if you want to. However, creating those custom ports is something that you would do via the command line. There is one final topic here that we want to talk about, and that is adding your ESXi host to a specific authentication services server. And you'll notice here that our directory services type is currently set to local authentication. If I wanted to adjust this, I could do so by changing it from local authentication to Active Directory, and then punching in, okay, company.pri, and then clicking the Join Domain button here. And you'll see I'm going to use my username and password to log that into the domain. One thing that you should be aware of when you do so is that when I log this into the domain, if I use my standard domain authentication credentials, that's going to put me in a specific organizational unit. But if I click the Help button here, you'll notice that one of the things that you can use is also this /container/path structure for making sure that the account that you're using to log in or to log this host into Active Directory goes into a certain organizational unit. So in my case, it would be company.pri/servers/ESX, for example, to ensure that this domain gets added in not under the default container, but under a specific organizational unit. Now you'll notice a second thing here, and that is if I attempt to go to Active Directory, I have the option of choosing what's called a vSphere authentication proxy. Now when I go and actually join the domain without the services of a vSphere authentication proxy, I'm going to have to put those domain join credentials somewhere inside of that ESX host. And an argument exists that with it being on that ESX host, someone that's looking to sniff for domain credentials could potentially find those and use those to do some very bad things. And so the vSphere authentication proxy presents a single location that proxies the authentication on behalf of those ESXi hosts, so you don't have to put that password information directly on the hosts. Now where do you get this? The vSphere authentication proxy is yet another one of those tools that's found on the vSphere 5 DVD. We've looked at this screen, this installer screen, a couple times before. And if I go down here and choose the VMware vSphere authentication proxy and attempt to install it, it will actually go through and create an IIS application, more or less, on whatever server I attempt to install it. I'm not going to install it, just you don't really need to see all the installation for this piece. But if you install this and then ultimately point your hosts at this authentication proxy with the right information, well, that's going to give you all the information you need in order to proxy in a much more secure way the connection of this ESXi host off to your Active Directory. So what have we talked about in this nugget? We've really gone through the whole process of securing down from a permissions perspective, and then from a network attack surface perspective, both vCenter Server and ESXi. We spent a lot of time talking about privileges and how you would go from I create a role, I want to assign the role to a group, I want to assign users to that group, and then ultimately that role to whatever permissions and whatever objects inside of the vCenter tree. That whole process does a really intelligent job of allowing you to specifically and discreetly design what types of actions you want different people to do. Excellent, excellent solution, particularly when you want other people to be assisting you with your vCenter activities. And then we also spent some time with some of these miscellaneous topics like adjusting the ESXi firewall and then adding that ESXi host to a directory service, both directly and through an authentication proxy. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.